out in the, oh, great, I got it. I think I'm supposed to say got it.
Oh, I got that. I got that
On
too.
A9 day, which was in that big area in front of the classroom building that, the passageway, there would be, it would go in circles. In the center would be people like Dick Vasson, Damon, Judy Yudkoff, Karen Goodman, Elena, and I think Kent probably would have been there. It would have been the very in people.
The popular kids.
No, around there would be people that I used to call clique busters. And they would be people who would stand and laugh at Vasson's antics and Damon's antics. I want to show you Louisa. Come on up.
Oh,
And then there would be just vast kinds of things.
oh.
And, like there would be like the Chicano kids would be more towards the end. And then Dave and I would be on the very far out, behaving outrageously, doing Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, things like that. That would, so
Right.
yeah, that was the way it is. And I gathered the kids that were in Vikings became Viscounts afterwards. Although I don't know if everybody was allowed in, and I don't know. And then I don't know how it was decided who became Parisians and who became Mamsells. I don't know that.
We decided somehow.
I think the ones that didn't become Parisians became themselves.
No.
We were
Okay.
kicked out of the Parisians.
Huh?
Was that it?
Dee and I
No,
were
that's
kicked
not
out.
my
Of the
memory.
Parisians. We were Parisians in junior high school at Revere Junior High. And then we were kicked out.
You were too
How did they
good.
do
We
that?
didn't take the grade.
How did they decide? So there were groups at Revere and groups at Vikings, and did the head guys of those? Because I remember it was decided when it got to uni that the Vikings would be at a certain space on the upper patio, which was the least pleasant part of the entire school, but it was also high up.
They could be
I
seen.
wondered how it was decided which of the Vikings would be able to join with the Revere top boys club and become Viscounts. And I wondered how that was decided, and how was it decided for you, say the girls groups?
The Mamsells did not, I would say, speaking for myself, we didn't really go around with, I mean, we might have had individual friends that were Parisians or Viscounts, but it seemed like the Viscounts and the Parisians were together. They kind of, as much as people hung around together, and the Mamsells just kind of were on their own, sort of, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's put very clearly. There was a boys group that formed at uni called the Windsors. And the way Joel tells me, I don't know if I'm supposed to say all this, but okay, I'll say it anyway. Barry Jaffe called Joel. This is Joel telling me this, and was very depressed and said, uni is going to be really miserable. We're not in kids, we're not great athletes. We've got to form a club of our own. So they formed the Windsors. And that was Mike Marcus, Joel Klein, Maurice Strauss, Jeff Litto. I don't know if Milton Friedman was in that group, but Fred Kroll was in it.
I'm picturing all the guys you're mentioning. I knew them. I'm picturing them.
Yeah. And so I guess it sounds like Mamsells was.
Kind of.
No.
Yeah, I think so.
Did you want to be in? So you wanted to be in? I could say all kinds of stuff.
I
didn't want to be in Parisians. I thought Mamsells were the best.
I loved our club, but I would have liked to have been able to hang out with them or something. And there was two distinct groups, in my opinion. Ginny, you were kind of in between. Well, Ginny was nice to everybody and everybody liked her, but I would say still they were just two distinct groups. I mean,
Well, we considered them the fast girls, so I looked down on them because they were cheap.
we thought,
I thought, oh, do you think so-and-so French kisses? And that
but
was
we
like the
thought
worst.
it was like, it's like the way everybody gossips. You form these opinions of these people and it may not even be that way.
And
Yeah, because they weren't the
and it
tough
wasn't
girls. They weren't
really.
tough girls. They didn't hang out with like
No,
biker guys or guys that
Oh.
were, you know,
No,
hot
They
rods.
hang out with the jocks.
well, I think they kind of hung out with the popular boys, and so they were the popular girls, and so, yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad that we couldn't all
Yeah,
be friends
get
and not.
along.
Yeah, right. Can't we all get along?
Yeah, well, I can't wait.
But
True.
you know, individually, everyone was nice and is to this day, I'm sure.
I
And
remember when I got to know Jolene a little bit through Joni, and I was shocked how darling she was and so
yeah,
nice.
yeah, right.
And so like Mitzi, how sweet she was. And Joyce Rumack is one of my best
Good
friends
friends
now.
now. Yeah,
Joyce Scholar.
yeah. I think it's just because you didn't
Hmm.
hang out and know each other so well, and so we have all these preconceived. And there's probably a little jealousy thrown in there as well.
Yeah.
Oh, Connie Reynolds was a very popular girl at Emerson.
Connie who? Then?
Connie Reynolds, do you remember her? She went on to Santa Monica.
So
Elena.
I don't know her.
No, but do you
No.
remember Joyce Rumack?
Very well. I mean, I was sorry to hear that her husband died.
Oh, you know her.
It came, well, I know who she was. I mean,
Scholar.
she sat next to me at a Spanish class.
Yeah, her husband just died. We just went to the service. It was so
Oh, did
sad.
you? Yeah. And I spoke to her at the 40th reunion as I spoke to you. You were both very friendly. And so, yeah, I remember I always liked her smile. She had a curious upside
Yeah,
down
she's
smile.
neat lady, but she was a Parisian.
Oh, she was.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The saddest thing to
Well,
me
then.
about the Y clubs is that 5 of the 25 spaces were reserved for people that weren't picked. And there was like a waiting list.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there was always, do you remember that, Jenny?
I
There
do
was,
remember that. Yeah.
so there was always kind of a distinction between the 20 who picked each other and the 5 who were got in on the wait list.
And then they got in and it was never quite the same. They probably felt funny too. I know some of those people.
This is interesting. You know, I never heard any of it because I didn't really know many Viscounts. I've recently gotten talking again to Kent and to Danny Hayton. But I've always been very curious about all of this. I'm hearing more about the politics of it. I mean, was it decided kind of early, or did people start early to have ambitions like Roger Ehrlich? Did he want to be the president of the school? Did Dave Kuhn and Bill Crouch want to be class presidents and vice president? Were things like that? I used to think it was all about the class clown kinds like Damon and Dick Vasson, but it seemed by uni it seemed more about like people like Dave Kuhn. And
I wish they were on here because I'd love to find that out too. Like, did they always want to run for that, or was it? I'd love to.
I would say those are the natural leaders of the class.
Yeah.
Just that was their personality.
Yeah.
But they set out to do it. And I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they set out to do it ahead of time. But I think
I ran for president of Emerson against Bill Crouch. And I did a most amazing thing that it still amazes me, that I spoke in different accents. I said, I'm here to support gay people present with a Southern accent, an English accent. I don't know what the other was, because I babysat for an actress who lived up Benedict Canyon, and she helped me work on my speech. So I remember looking out at this big auditorium. I don't know how I couldn't do that now, do accents in front of
Did
this
you
huge
win?
auditorium.
Yeah, did you win?
No, Bill Crouch won, I'm sure, big time. He
Of
was
all
much
people
more-
to be running against, really.
I wasn't even aware that they had class presidents at Emerson. I was just so out of it. I just didn't even
I
know.
didn't either. I don't know.
Well, Bill was definitely, because we were always in leadership class. So to answer your question, we were always in leadership class because we were elected as the homeroom reps. And so that was where the logical sequence was being a homeroom rep since 7th grade. Like Damon and I were in our homeroom that you were in.
Yeah, I remember the reps. I think I was a homeroom rep sometimes. I like that. But I never was a leader, so
Well, if
Were
you
you
were
friends
homeroom
with
rep,
Crystal Abbey?
I remember Crystal.
I remember Crystal.
She rode on my bus.
One thing a story I remember that she and Diane Kaji went into the counselor's office and said they wanted the exact same schedule.
Yeah.
That always struck me as very interesting.
Did they get it?
I think they did. I mean, I didn't follow it very carefully.
Who would
I
have
just
thought
took
to do
everything,
that?
warehouse eyes, like in Bob Dylan's song. What is it called? Sad-Eyed Lady, the Lowlands. My warehouse eyes, my Arabian drums. I mean, I have warehouse eyes. I saw it, so. But I don't, my memory is not that good after a certain period.
You mean what? After
Oh, after like the last 30 years, I've been in one place. I've lived in one place. I mean, I remember things, but they weren't, my life hasn't been divided into semesters in the same way that it was so clear when we were in school.
yeah.
John, did the different groups dress differently, or did all the girls and all the groups wear saddle shoes or white buck shoes or whatever? I mean, could you look at someone and see what kind of group they were in?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. There was some girls like Betty Wynn. Do you remember Geraldine Diakos? Was she in our class?
I don't remember the name.
Some girls dressed, I think they were dressed more, my mother would call it grown up. I mean, I looked at the A9 class picture and said, that's an awfully grown up dress she has on, I know some of the boys, would wear the jelly roll haircut and the ducktail if they wanted to look kind of like I don't know, rough. They used the term rough, or they wear taps on their shoes. I don't know. There were a lot of them that there were a lot of Chicano kids. They dressed differently. And I guess I dressed very spaz. That's the way Bob Kroll put it.
What does that mean?
Oh, I mean, I just didn't know about dressing cool. I mean, I just wore clothes my mother had a thing that blonde people should not wear black and red, that I should wear taupe. So everything I had to wear was gray, tan. I just sort of, and I remember loved it because Orrin Robinson, he was it was something in the 7th grade, and he was such a sweet guy. He was giving me advice. Well, Johnny, I think you ought to get yourself a sweater like this, in green and something like that, and some saddle shoes. And, and he'd have his hair in that kind of a jelly roll in the front, and then ducktail going in the back. And, so I started dressing. I was more aware of my dress and the way I looked in high school. And then I tried to look very beatnik. I tried to look, bohemian. I'd carry a book of poetry in my coat pocket so people could see I was reading it.
Don't you love the pretension.
Oh, I know the armor. What
Yeah.
armor? I know. Yeah,
That's a funny story.
we were the people down in the Grove, the Upper Grove,
Yeah.
And all the arty kids or the theater arts people,
Yeah.
the TA. Oh, you're looking very TA today. Like girls would want to wear like black leotards, like a beatnik.
Yeah, that's funny. A beatnik.
So I definitely wanted to look like that. Cigarette ash on lapels, sneering around. That was big.
Did you smoke in high school?
No, oh, I started by 12th grade because Chris Cabot smoked a lot. So I started by 12th grade.
Did you continue smoking? Are you a smoker now?
Not anymore. I quit after, like in 1970, I quit.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Not for too long.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm sure glad I stopped that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very unrewarding
Sue
habit.
Glad stopped me from smoking. Remember
Oh,
that?
did she?
Did she knock a cigarette out of your hand, kind of a thing?
And we were at her
did.
house and she said there'll be no, because she was Mormon. She said we were all at a club party or something, which we never had many parties. I don't know why we'd be smoking but I remember I had a cigarette in my mouth and she came and knocked it out of my hand and said there'd be no smoking in my house. I said, oh, okay.
Maggie, do you remember going to the Brentwood post office one time up in Brentwood Village? And you and I had cigarettes in our hands and we'd be walking along puffing cigarettes.
Oh, we did? I'm surprised we do that so locally.
Well, I mean, we wanted people to see how sophisticated we were, I guess. How we were so
funny.
cool that we, I don't even know where we got the cigarettes, but I do remember we were walking along because then I read later that young ladies didn't walk with their cigarettes. And here I thought, oh my gosh, we were walking with cigarettes.
Oh, that's
Oh,
so
yeah, yeah. I know kids used to get off the bus on Santa Monica Boulevard and they'd light a cigarette right away to walk their way. And it was funny, especially people that didn't inhale, but they had to
that
have
would be us. probably.
cigarettes.
Yes, yeah.
What
Yeah.
what else did people do to assert their rebellion or adolescent adulthood or independence or something besides smoking and DuckTales?
Didn't wearing jeans sort of low on the hip, was that
Yeah,
one thing
I
with
think it
boys?
was. I think it was. I remember in junior high, well, I went to Emerson for the first semester.
Yeah.
But I kind of remember that if they had their belts on their Levi's and the belt buckle was put to the side, do you remember? I remember that as thinking, oh, that's super cool.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
whatever. That was really neat.
And shoes, when you used to carry a little buck bag with you,
Yes,
you pound your shoe with
right.
powder.
I
Yeah.
think boys were challenged if they dressed too rough. Oh, you think you're really rough. If you had your jelly roll. I mean, I didn't dress rough. I mean, of course, but
Jelly
people
rolls.
kind of challenged on, whether you
Like to
at the
fight kind of
chutzpah to
challenge?
wear a jelly roll.
Yeah, those were the kind of racy, more boys, like not the so-called most popular, but I remember the guys, they would slick their hair back, and have a line down the back.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that ducktail. Yeah.
Yeah, it's back and then a line down there, down the middle.
So what made the popular kids popular? Was like athletic guys or good looking girls, or what made them popular?
All the above.
I've wondered this all my life. It was like, like I remember once Fred Marks asked me, well, this was later. Fred and I stayed friends, and he said, when did you start noticing which kids got invited to the parties? And what parties? Now, a big thing that happened, I have to say this was after the 40th No, it was after the 50th reunion. You know, I always wondered why Damon never came to a lot of the reunions. And one of the people I know said that he heard people talking about that there was a Viscount's party the night before the reunion. And it all clicked to me at that point. And it's one reason I sort of pulled away. Well, I mean, it was that, well, of course, they would see each other anytime they wanted.
Yeah.
We were the people. I mean, and when, say, for instance, Dave would send out things saying something like, let's all get together again in 5 years. Now, I couldn't write something like that. I know it kind of struck me. Another thing that struck me, especially at the 40th reunion, even the 20th, is that I remembered everybody. And very few knew who I was. Very few people knew who I was. I mean, maybe it was a compliment. I don't know. Maybe it was. But it's one of the reasons that it kind of soured to me. The reunions. I knew very few people. I mean, people I was in plays with, or people like Susan Garner, Shirley Garrett. I didn't really hang out with these people, but of course I knew. I was awake. How could I not know who they were? You know, I remember talking to someone, I think she was a Parisian, and she was saying, I mean, of course I don't know all the names. She said I knew 26 people. You know, I'd say, well, do you remember Carl Goldschmidt? He was, or Jimmy Copeland, who some retarded kids. Well, no, I didn't hang out in that social circle. Ginny, you're looking sad hearing this.
What I think was so amazing was because we were winter graduation classes and we didn't, at least I didn't hang out with the other half of our class, which was the spring graduation. I mean, that was I don't even know the names of those people. And here we were all the same age. I mean,
But we were a huge school, but we were such a big school.
It was a big school, and maybe it would have been different had the school been smaller.
Yeah,
You're right. But just that always amazed me that we didn't know more people outside of our own little class.
Right. Yeah.
Some of my friends accelerated, like Chris Cabot accelerated. He was in the lay. So did Mark Serlin. You know, so they got the right amount of units, so they were able to graduate a semester. I mean, but those were people I think pretty much didn't like school, and they weren't club people. But we could be pretty snooty too.
If they got out early, they were probably pretty smart and went on and school.
You know, we were the smart asses. By uni, we were smart, you know.
What do you remember, John, about classroom intellectual stimulation? Like, do you remember having good discussions in classes where people are really thinking, or what was the academic part of?
That I remember. Well, I remember you and I were in Gerald Trett's World Lit class.
I remember Mr. Trett.
I was just I had chills up and down my spine. You know, like when he first said, I tend to regard life as a comedy. I couldn't believe a teacher was saying that. We got to be friends after school. I got to know him throughout his life. He was friends with Malcolm Broadwick, who was a year behind us. I was somebody I used to hang out with a lot.
Well, didn't you say that he said that your class was particularly on it and that later classes were out of it, something like that? I think
Roger told us that at one of these meetings. He said that it really changed. Now, I don't know if it was over a decade. I heard a story that Mr. Holtby, who stayed on a long time, he's the one I guess that he had administration I think Chet may have told me this story, but I'm getting things mixed up. Said, give me all the worst students in the school. And I just want to teach them about living, being a person, living their life. About
Wow.
That's what I heard. Because Holtby stayed there a long time. I don't know. I don't want to come off like Mr. Know-it-all.
Well, that's okay. You have a better memory than we do. It's good.
Interesting.
Yeah, but naturally, it's, I see it from the point of view of, people who didn't have a very good time in school and had I guess what would be, would be called attitude problems but I'm just glad there was drama, in the plays after school, and that I think that's what kind of got me through. But I always did other things outside. I paint. I was starting to paint. I was always painting, and I loved old movies. Did you guys love old movies
I
on
do
TV?
now. I do now.
I mean, it was my life. I mean,
Like-
when the major studios released their backlog in 1957, you could start seeing things with Wallace Beery and Greta Garbo and on television. I mean, it just changed my life. That's all I wanted to do.
Was that they had sound?
Yeah. They didn't show many silent movies on television until Turner Classics. Then they did, and that was another big. I wanted to ask another question, but I have to run to the bathroom. My old man's bladder control
Well, ask the question so we can think about it.
Okay, I wanted to ask about the women's. What is that? The Women's Equal Rights Amendment?
ERA.
Yeah, that hasn't gone through, has it?
No.
I wanted to ask about that. Let me run in here.
Okay. I'm so glad you're on, Peg and Ginny. It's
Yeah,
super
I
fun.
have a wedding. I have just a couple more minutes. We had the rehearsal dinner last night. Wedding this afternoon. Family coming over tomorrow. So I just wanted to say hi.
Is someone in your family getting married?
My niece.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
She's pregnant. She's 6 months pregnant, but it's okay. Whatever.
Yeah, anything goes.
Did your sister Carol have like a bunch of kids?
2. Yeah, 2. A boy and a girl.
And-
One lives in Washington, and her daughter lives in Arizona, where she lives.
And did Tommy ever have kids?
He had one daughter, Gail. We actually don't speak, but it's a long story. I'll tell you sometime. It's fine.
Okay. Well, then you go get ready. And what do you think about? I recorded this. Do you think it's okay to put it, or should I not? I'm going to stop.